Continue to monitor this incredibly close race. And for more on the path to 270 electoral votes, I want to bring in our ABC News Washington Bureau Chief and Political Director, Rick Klein, who's at the big board for us. Rick, I'm so happy to have you here. And I love this part of the night. Multiple scenarios could play out tonight, right? So walk us through the different paths to victory here.
Yeah, Kana, this is a map filled in with all of the what we consider more safe red states and blue states. So if everything lines up and Trump wins the states that he's favored in and Harris wins the state that she's favored in, we see the Electoral College landing there. Then it becomes that battle to 270 electoral votes. The easiest way for Kamala Harris to get there is to carry the big blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That alone gets her at 270 electoral votes. If she loses one of those, she needs functionally to win at least one of the southern states and then at least in either the other state there or one of the battleground states out west, which are going to take quite a long time. For Donald Trump, he's got a couple of different paths. It's possible that by the end of the vote counting, he carries both of those western states and the two states that are battlegrounds in the South, Georgia and North Carolina. That puts him at 268 electoral votes, and he's just one state away from taking the Electoral College. He could get the electoral votes he needs in Pennsylvania. Another way to think about it is if he wins Georgia and North Carolina, which could project pretty early tonight, Kana, he is in the driver's seat the rest of the night.
No question. I think there's so many eyes here on North Carolina. In fact, the governor just told me, in his opinion, Rick, that if Kamala Harris wins North Carolina, she's going to win the election, in his opinion. And so let's talk a little bit more about those swing states. I mean, you absolutely cannot overlook Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes.
Yeah, and just looking at the way that the map lines up and the timeline of the evening, the election basically starts in the southeast with those two battlegrounds I mentioned in Georgia and North Carolina. The poll closings here are important because that's when we see data. That's when you could start to see a projection. Officials in both Georgia and North Carolina tell us they expect to have a lot of data in tonight. It might be that our decision desk makes a projection in one or both of those states sometime late this evening. Pennsylvania, that's the most important battleground state, but it's going to be pretty slow. We've heard already some issues in some of the polling locations about ballot counting. It's going to take a long time. So then we're going to start looking forward. Arizona and Nevada, man, if we're talking about those, it's going to be a really long time, Kana. But Michigan and Wisconsin, we could get results tonight. Michigan, all the polls close at 9, but in most of the state, they're actually closed at 8. So we'll start to see data flow in, and that's one of the states where they changed the law to make it easier to count a lot more quickly. So even though we're bracing for what could potentially be many days of uncertainty, it's possible, depending on how the states start to break tonight, that we do get a projection at some point, even very late this evening or into tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. And noting here that from some county officials in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, they've actually had to keep some of these polling locations open even a little bit later, perhaps delaying that count even more. Let's also, though, not overlook the balance of power in Congress in this race as well.
Yeah, and look, we just did some scenarios for the Senate. These are the Senate seats that are in play tonight. And I just want to play through a couple of different scenarios here because Republicans basically have 46 safe seats, Democrats 42. Democrats playing a lot more defense. If Republicans are able to hold Florida, hold Texas with Senator Ted Cruz, and hold Nebraska, they're at 49. You need 50 if you also have the presidency to control the Senate. West Virginia, the Democrats are almost certain to give that to the Republicans with the retirement of Senator Joe Manchin. That alone could be enough if Donald Trump wins the presidency. But even if he does not, there's still a bunch of opportunities. The Democrats would have to hold all of the other seats that we're looking at right here. That includes places including Montana with John Tester on the ballot, and Ohio, both states where Donald Trump is heavily favored to win at the top of the ticket.
No question. A lot of eyes on that Montana and Ohio Senate race. Rick Klein, such a pleasure to have you here with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hannah.